Hello and welcome to Model Aviation Live. I'm your host, Executive Editor Jay Smith of Model Aviation and Park Pilot magazines. Hopefully, you've just finished watching AMA Air, which I was a part of, and obviously got to share some exciting information. I want to go ahead and share that again because not everybody probably was able to tune in. So, the exciting information that I want to share with you, I did share previously on this show, and that is that I had the opportunity to interview Tom Schultz, who is the guitar player, keyboard player, and founder of Boston. So I had the great opportunity to interview him because this year is the 50th year that Tom is celebrating flying RC aircraft. So we had a great conversation around his involvement in the hobby. And we also talked a bit about Boston, about their first album, and about touring, and interestingly enough, about what could have appeared on the first album cover. If you're familiar with Boston, you know that they use spaceships on their cover, and even a spaceship that looks like a guitar. And when the first album came out, the record label wanted to put a head of Boston lettuce on the cover or some Boston baked beans on the cover. And obviously, Tom had the ideas of possibly a spaceship. We talk about that a little bit in the article, but I thought that was very interesting, to learn that kind of insight into the start of the band. That first album that Tom wrote in his basement sold 17 million copies. So it was very, very exciting to have the chance to talk to him about his hobby. So I'm really excited now to be able to share this issue with you. If you get digital edition, if you receive the digital edition of Model Aviation, it's available right now. If you get print, it'll be available in roughly 10 days. And also exciting, we did a Facebook post today about the issue, and that post was shared on Boston, the band Facebook page. So Model Aviation and AMA and our hobby is going to be shared with 2.1 million people through the band and their social media. So I'm really excited about that as well. Hopefully there's going to be some Boston fans that have always wanted to get involved in model aviation, and this will give them hopefully that thought that maybe now's the time to take part in it. And so we're really excited about all that. Really thank Tom Schultz for the time and reaching out to us, and also his publicist for their help and making this happen. So really excited to share with the cover with you. And I wrote the article myself, and I'm really excited for everyone to get to read it, because I'm sure, like myself, many of our members and readers have grown up with Boston or listened to Boston over the years. So mainly just want to share that with you. I've got two great guests that are going to be joining us today on the show, so I want to leave plenty of time to talk to them. And I'm always a fan of talking to my friends at HighTech, and today I have two of them. I have Shawn Spiker and I have Mike Mayberry that are joining us on the show. So let's go ahead and welcome them to the show.
Hey,
Hi, Jay.
Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having us on.
Absolutely, yeah. Happy
So,
to be here.
I have to ask, are you both fans of the band Boston?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's one, part of your childhood growing up, listening to that band, and I mean, I don't know, I played that album over and over and over and over. So that's cool that you guys got to experience that and hook up with him.
Well, no offense to lettuce or baked beans, but I just don't
Yeah.
think that first album would be the same with that imagery.
No, it's iconic.
So before we talk a little bit about, what's going on in HighTech today, let's just, for those that aren't maybe familiar with, I don't know how they couldn't be, because we see you at events and you do a lot of videos and information for HighTech customers. But let's, if you would, I'll start with you, Shawn. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in the hobby, and then what it is that you currently do at HighTech.
Okay, well, I was a hobbyist before I started a hobby at HighTech. I wasn't probably the biggest of hobbyists, but in college, I built my first sailplane, used HighTech products. But even actually in middle school, I had a HighTech radio for a couple of my RC cars, and a HighTech speed control back then. So I was familiar with the company. Started out my career, ended up on the West Coast. I was looking for a little bit of a change in career, and because someone had mentioned, hey, HighTech is located in San Diego, and And on a kind of a lark, I just emailed the manager of HighTech at the time and said, "Hey, are you looking for anybody for sales?" And that person said, "Hey, why don't you stop on by?" And they offered me a job. So here I am. And I think it's 17 years later, still here. Now I am sales director. So I am managing the different divisions of HighTech for North America. And HighTech has essentially 4 different divisions. So there's the hobby division, which most of the AMA members and Model Aviation readers are familiar with. And, we make all the HighTech servos and the chargers and, what used to be radios. But there also there's a few other divisions of HighTech. There is the commercial division, which makes mostly servos for applications used outside of the hobby industry. There's also a commercial drone division, and we make commercial drones and components for commercial drones that are made in the U.S. And then we have a drone services division, which does drone services for various clients, mostly in the California area, but also we occasionally travel to provide whatever services and data those customers need. So there's 4 separate divisions here at the U.S. office, and I'm director for all 4.
Excellent. Mike, how did you get started in the hobby?
Well, I grew up in the hobby. My dad was a modeler, and I was involved all my life. Started out flying. Did a lot of car racing in my younger days, and I enjoy that. I've worked for a company called Hobby Shack, which turned into Hobby People in the later years, and unfortunately they're no longer around. But I spent some years managing a hobby shop, and so I've got a lot of experience, just in general, knowing about the hobby. Been with HighTech 26 years now, so it's been a long time. I am the sales manager for the RC division. I also manage the team as far as our sponsored pilots and drivers. Our factory pilot program there. So that's been exciting part of it for me. Customer service has always been, one of the things that I really enjoy. I love to talk to the customers on the phone and get a good feeling for what's going on out in the world there.
Awesome. Well, we did talk about events, and Shawn, I'm going to mention it again. I know I've mentioned this about 5 times, but you helped me check something off my RC bucket list when you took myself and Mark Lanterman out to Torrey Pines and let us fly one of your sailplanes. And when I talk about a handful of things for me in the hobby, that was one of them. To come and visit HighTech and tour your facility and meet all the people involved with HighTech. Because as you both know, my father owned a hobby shop, and I've been in the hobby since I was 6. And, to see where HighTech products are made and meet everyone, and then go out to Torrey Pines and actually get to fly. And the funny story is we actually had to go twice, because the first time we went, there was no wind and there was no lift. And it was the first time in my life that I couldn't fly a model airplane because it was too calm. I mean, that just doesn't make sense. And so then we had to go back a second time. So, I've mentioned it in articles, I've mentioned it in my editorial, but I can't stop thanking you for that, because that was just a real high for me, no pun intended, because we were flying a sailplane, but, to fly at Torrey Pines, because it's just beautiful and it's historic. And so very cool. Thank you as always for that.
Oh, my pleasure. And I retell that story a lot of times too. So it's something I think about often, fondly. In RC, my favorite part of the RC hobby is the sailplanes. So I do try to go back to Torrey. I don't get there as often as I would like to, but it is such a magical, special place. And just being there, I would compare it to going to, St. Andrews to play golf. It's something like that. That's like where a lot of it started. So it's a great place. It's one of the only places I fly some of my more delicate gliders, bigger gliders, because it has great places to land, and it's ideal for flying. So yeah, glad you guys were able to make it. That was just a special day, special experience, and I recall it fondly.
Well, also we get to see each other at flying events and I would say trade shows, but sadly we don't have as many of those. So one of the big ones, obviously for everyone, is Joe Nall, and both HighTech was there, and you want to share maybe a little bit about that. I think we have some photos to share, and you could share a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, it's a good picture there. That's most of the team pilots that were there, and we've got a really kind of new young crew. You see there on the left, Scott Bauerschmidt. Scott's actually our kind of national sales or national team manager, who really volunteered to do this and help to expand our team. And he gets out to a lot of events. We just can't make it out to all these events anymore, and so Scott's been kind of instrumental in bringing up a new group of team pilots. HighTech's always had a great presence with our team, and many years, over and over, going to big events and shows and stuff like that. Brandon Chitty, one of our OG team pilots, well known. But as everybody gets older, and families and kids and stuff, they can't always do it. So it's great to have a new batch of young, exciting, incredibly talented pilots out there. Jake Arnold did some had a video on Flying Giants showing him just ringing out a plane. And a lot of our new guys, they're just what represents kind of the new, fresh, young talents in the market. There's Jake right there, JJ Hedrick, CJ Corella. They are Ashley Heath, a young girl. As we don't see a lot of women in the in the industry, as pilots, and so it's great to see people like that just representing our company, showing off the products, and it's our goal to continue that trend, to expand on our team presence and bring up new pilots and be at a lot of events, so that you can see a representation of HighTech at these even smaller events, and not just Joe Nall, but so proud to have these guys out there, men and women, and representing us very, very well.
And there's also a Soaring Festival that you take part in. Is that right?
Yeah, so just a couple of weeks ago, there was it's a relatively new Soaring Festival, and then I don't think there's a whole lot of Soaring Festivals in the U.S., but it's in a place here in California called Lake Arrowhead, which is right next to Big Bear Lake too, and an amazing event. So this was more of alpine soaring, is how it was described to me, where it's not necessarily ridge lift or lift from the wind blowing of the mountain. It's heat being generated at the bottom of the valley, and you're up in the mountains, and you're riding all the thermal activity coming off that valley. And it was absolutely amazing. So it was put on by a gentleman named Carlton Spindle. Carlton's been in the hobby for a long time, and it takes place at Santa's Village Sky Park in Lake Arrowhead. So there were a lot of RC pilots out there. Some big names were out there too, and basically launching 2 and 3 and sometimes bigger sailplanes off the mountain. And there was some just incredible thermal lift. In fact, at one point it was so big that I took a Fun Cub XL, which by no means is a glider, and took off and was able to thermal a Fun Cub XL for 10 solid minutes without touching the throttle. And people were just kind of laughing because they see this big, heavy, large Cub thermaling with 3 and 4 meter sailplanes, all kind of in the same thermal, just circling around. And I had a blast flying it. And and it was actually really easy to see the Fun Cub XL up there in the thermal. And but that was probably the longest flight I ever put in on a Fun Cub. I was in the air for 20 minutes, and it was a lot of fun. But a great place. It was kind of, it's a new event, so we're kind of building on it. Next year should be even bigger and better. And like I said, it's put on by Carlton Spindle with the help of the of Santa's Village there in Lake Arrowhead. And so it's a great thing. And Carlton, some of the glider people that are listening might remember Carlton. But Carlton was the original importer for multiplex, going back, what, how many years, Mike?
Probably 20 plus years.
Yeah. So, and we've always kind of maintained a relationship. When HighTech bought multiplex, we of course became the importer, but we've always known Carlton. Carlton's a great guy. And then here recently, we actually kind of worked out a deal with Carlton, where Carlton is now again the importer for multiplex models. So Carlton has a website that's Mr. Multiplex, or actually MrMPXHobbies.com. So he's now selling all the multiplex airplanes and components on his website with our full support. And so if you're looking for multiplex models, there's where you find them. So it's worked out well for Carlton. It's worked out well for us. We still go out and, love to use the multiplex products, but now now we have Carlton with Mr. Multiplex Hobbies sell those airplanes.
So Shawn, was this the first year of that soaring event that you mentioned?
First official year as a Soaring Festival. The first time they kind of got together was last year, but I would say this is kind of the first real year. I think last year was kind of a test, and just to see if they could get any interest, because there really isn't anything else like it. So if you're a RC enthusiast or a glider enthusiast and a soaring enthusiast in the basically West Coast and are looking for an alpine soaring event, check it out for next year. It's going to be sometime in June of 2023. If you type in, it's the Sky Park Santa's Village Soaring Festival, and you'll find it online. But it was a lot of fun, and I actually wore out the skin on my thumbs from flying so much. So that hasn't happened in a long time.
Well, it sounds like a great event. We'll have to look into having maybe coverage of the event next year.
Yep.
In a magazine. That'd be great.
That'd be awesome.
So we've touched on a couple of events that have happened already that HighTech's been at, but you're also going to be at the NEAT Fair that's coming up. So if anybody that can make it to the NEAT Fair will be at the NEAT Fair, they can come by and you'll have a booth there, correct?
We will. So in fact, we're going to share a booth with Carlton and Multiplex. So even though we are not the importer here in this office anymore, and we really are supporting the brand. Obviously, it's owned by the same owner as HighTech. So we want to continue that level of support, and we'll ideally have some team pilots out there to be able to show off product as well, help Carlton out. We'll have a big 30-foot booth, and if anybody is familiar with going to the NEAT Fair in past several years, although not the last couple, obviously, but know that HighTech and Multiplex have always had a big presence out there. We really enjoy that event. We really enjoy the people, just the iconic scenery, beautiful valley. Gets chilly at night, but it's just we always spend our time at the event completely. So we'll camp there, and we'll be on site all the time. And so sometimes most fun is that when the sun goes down and the lights come onto our tent, and find something to fly and hang out and just have a good time. So anybody in that area, if you haven't been to the NEAT Fair, or you've been to the NEAT Fair, get out there, come see us. It's a wonderful event, and really looking forward to being back out there again and helping support the Multiplex product as well as the HighTech.
Yeah, the NEAT Fair is definitely a great electric event, and I think it caters a little bit more to builders to some degree than some of the other electric events. At least it seems that way, that a lot of people like to build stuff and bring to the NEAT Fair.
Well, there's a building season out there, so the people aren't flying where, some other parts of the country, they just want ready to fly stuff and fly all year long. But yeah, you do see some really, really nice models out there that people put a lot of time and effort into. And it's just really a fantastic event. So I think it's maybe waned in the last few years is what it used to be. Maybe not as many vendors coming out. I don't know. Maybe HighTech will kick things off again and get more vendors to come out there again when they see how how beneficial it is.
Well, I did talk to the organizer of the NEAT Fair, and while yes, because of COVID, because of the travel restrictions, the vendor turnout hasn't been what it used to be, but you can say that for a lot of events. However, the actual pilot count of the last couple of years has stayed pretty high and hasn't dwindled compared to the vendors. So the event has still been very popular, and it's like you said, a very iconic event. It is unique. It's in a unique location. And it's similar to Jonal, where there really isn't something else out there that's very similar. So yeah, if you're looking for a bucket list place on the East Coast for an electric event to go to, NEAT Fair would definitely be the one.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, we need to talk a little bit about new product development, and excited to hear a little bit about that from both of you.
Okay. So HighTech has been very, very busy developing new product, and but most of that product wasn't designed specifically for the hobby market. Most of the servo development was for the industrial side of the business, and those servos could be going in unmanned systems. They could be for other aerospace applications. It could be medical. Could just be general industrial. We have a lot of customers that are using a servo in very surprising areas. So there's been a lot of development, and that means new protocols, could be higher voltages, could be designed for just so many more cycles than what's typical in the hobby environment. So that's what we've been doing for the last few years, and have had great success introducing new lines that you don't see in the hobby. But what we're seeing now is a lot of that development is starting to trickle back into the hobby. So advances in technologies, advances in the types of circuits, the types of protocols. We have servos now that will tell you their position, their temperatures, humidity, how much force they're using, how much current they're drawing, what voltage they're seeing. So the servos are becoming an active part of whatever ecosystems they're being put in. A lot of times that's for autopilots and for other control devices that need some feedback from the servo. We're seeing servos in very, very large aircraft or even ground vehicles. So we're making a lot of these servos, and we're using those technologies and what we developed and what we learned over the last few years to bring that back into the hobby. So we've seen there's some new brushless servos coming. There's servos that have different designs of gear trains to handle more force, that'll be smoother, less backlash, gear materials that are even stronger, yet don't sacrifice weight. So there's just a lot going on that is exciting for the hobby that we will bring into the hobby over the next year or so. And some of those products will be coming out pretty soon. Mike, you want to jump in here on stuff I've missed? I'm sure I've missed quite a bit.
So yeah, and Shawn mentioning about the development on the industrial side of things, which they've really, and that stuff is kind of trickling back down into the hobby side. We've kind of feel like the hobby side needed a little bit of love, and so there's new products in the pipeline. Higher ultra torque standard size servos have been the kind of the norm now, where they're getting more and more powerful there. But there was also a certain point at which the design of the case could only handle, really 500 ounces was about as much as the standard cases could handle, even with the aluminum and stuff like that, the way the gears are designed. So some of the new servos that we have in the works, they're utilizing a different type of gear train, where we're using very oversized bearings to support the output. We're using 3 pins instead of 2 pins. So there'll be some new products here coming out shortly that we'll announce. A little too early to speak about it right now, but it'd be very soon, where we're looking at a 55 kilogram, servo 800 inch ounce type of servos, where the cases are designed to handle that type of power. There's some other brands, that are claiming these torques. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not, unfortunately. It's kind of like lipo batteries, they put a C rating on things and nobody really cares or notices, but it's, HighTech's always been, if we say it has this much torque, it's going to have that much torque. And so we stand behind the product. There will be, like I said, new aluminum case servos, brushless servos, utilizing our new D series circuit. And that's one of the things that we wanted to kind of talk about a little bit. Is the D series circuit is the latest iteration of the HighTech digital circuit, programmable. Some of the features that added compared to the 7000 series, say for example, is twice the resolution. We're at 4096 resolution now. There's obviously the programmability. One of the nice features is soft start. So when the servo first powers up, if your control surfaces are drooping on your big airplanes, instead of it just zipping back to center and kind of putting a load on the gear train, it'll go back to center really slowly. And those are things that can be programmed in. We do have an interface through a PC. We also have the HFP30, which is a handheld interface. Some of the other features we have what's called Smart Sense. So Smart Sense is the best way to kind of describe it is like an auto gain function, where if you start to get a little bit of jittering out of the servos, Smart Sense will kind of sense what's going on and adjust the servo to help reduce some of those jitters that we've seen in the past. That we typically get under some slight loads, or you see like little shaking of the servos and stuff like that. So the Smart Sense has resolved those issues. It's all programmable. There's many servos now, and one of the things that we showed up on the screen was some of the things where there are the new versions. So for example, the 5645 servo is one of our most popular servos of all time. Right there, 5645. Well, the D645 is the replacement. One thing we did do is we changed to a 25-2 spline, which is more of an industry standard. So the D series do have a 25-2 spline, something to consider. But for example, the 5645 is a 1024 resolution servo. D645 is 4096. You will see that in how smooth the servo is, and how it just is. Like I said, it's just butter smooth when you're moving the surfaces instead of being a little bit jumpy. The gear trains are the same, the motors are the same. It's just that amplifier that enhances the performance of the servo. And it's also, I think they're about the same price. In fact, it might even be slightly less for the D645 over the 5645. So we will never discontinue a product until the market tells us to. If everybody wants to continue buying 5645s because that's what they like, then we'll continue to sell them until there's a point where it's not justifiable. But I would encourage people to look at the D series servos and look at the advantages that they have over the older servos. Even if they, some of the older servos are still available. If it's a 24-2 spline thing, I still want the 24-2 spline. That's still available on the older servos. But the D series servos are definitely superior. All HighTech servos come with a 2-year warranty, and that's something we've been known for, taking care of the customer. Questions, if you want to get on the phone, call me. I'm happy to talk to people. I get this all the time. Oh my God, I'm actually talking to a real person. And it seems like lately it's just harder and harder to get a hold of a real person, of customer service, whether that be people working remote, they got to leave a message, get a call back. But HighTech's always, really stood behind the product. Customer service is our number one concern. And so anytime anybody ever has a question, wants to know what product to use, feel free to give us a call.
Well, along with the D line of servos, you also have a glider servo as well. Is that right?
We do. There's a new servo called the D141 SH, and that's steel gears, high voltage. There's going to be a magnetic encoder version of it. That's going to be the MD141 SH, and then for the non-hobby applications, there'll be a version that runs on CAN, a version that runs on drone CAN, a version that can run on RS-45. And all D series servos will also run on the TTL protocol. So that's kind of unique. But it is a 10 millimeter. It's a thin wing servo. It has it has flat mounts. But out of a 10 millimeter servo, we're getting 100 ounce inches, very tight. Tons of torque, and like Mike mentioned earlier, when we say something has a certain amount of torque, we'll stand behind that, and typically we actually underrate most of the products just to be on the side of being conservative. So a very, very high-end, precise, but a lot of power, a lot of punch in a very small package, metal case. So these are the types of servos that will be perfect in a high-performance glider. It's still going to be light, but offer tons of power for those big ailerons or the big flaps. But these servos also have a huge application outside of the hobby and a lot of aerospace applications, drones, unmanned systems. So these are the types of servos that HighTech is building for not only the hobby, but other applications where they're going to have very, very high quality motors. The number of cycles these servos will do is going to be a lot higher than the average servo. So we're building a lot of quality. There's a lot of technology, a lot of hard work goes into these servos because we know the application will go beyond just the hobbyist, and the hobbyist gets to enjoy the benefits of that extra work, that extra development, the quality that goes into it. And speaking of that quality, so HighTech's one of the few servo companies that owns our own factories. We own the ground, we own the buildings, we own the dirt, and we don't manufacture these servos in China. So these servos are either going to be manufactured in our factories in Korea or the Philippines. We own every stage of production. We don't farm it out. We own procuring the raw materials. We actually are one of the few companies that builds our own boards for these servos. So we're designing the boards, we're building the boards, we're fabbing everything. So from the engineering, the design, the production, all the way to QC, that's all HighTech. So there's not many other companies that can say that. We know exactly where they were built, when they were built. They're not going to be farmed out to the cheapest contractor at the time to build our product. So this is something that is a huge advantage for us, and especially in this time of material shortages, shipping difficulties. The fact that we are in control of every component of our manufacturing is a huge advantage. So this is something I think that it is very important for the end user to know, even the hobbyist. So, we have not been affected by these trade wars with China. So, not that we've been immune from inflation and things like that, and the cost of shipping has gone up because of shipping difficulties. I'm bringing a lot of product in by air, and that does increase costs. But for the most part, we've passed along very little of those cost increases to the end user. So, we're still trying to bring the best product in a timely manner and engineer that product better than anybody else out there. And I think we're quite successful at that.
Well, and I think, you want to even talk a little bit about maybe the history of HighTech. I mean, we talked about both of your individual histories with HighTech, but aren't you going on about 40 years of business now?
So we're going on 40 years of business here in the United States. Now, worldwide, HighTech is about to celebrate its 50th anniversary, and we're actually going to have some special product for that. But we are a company that has been around for a long time, a very healthy company. And, here in the hobby industry, we've seen a lot of companies come and go, and some of those companies were around a long time too. But, HighTech has a history of strong growth, but conservative operations that have paid off well for us. So we can go out and afford to spend a lot more money for engineering, a lot more time for quality manufacturing. We don't have to go out and find the cheapest contractor to build something for us. We're doing that all in-house. So it does provide us a big advantage, especially dealing with customers that are only allowed to buy a certain product that's not manufactured in China. We have a lot of those customers. So we're very happy to have a product that says, yes, either this was made in the US or it was made in our factories, either in Korea or the Philippines. There's no components that are manufactured in China. So we're very proud to say that. And it's something we tout, but it's also something that allows us a greater level of control than a lot of other companies can say. So that's part of that learning process that comes from 40 and 50 years of experience and being able to make some smart decisions, wise decisions that pay off in the long run. And that's kind of been the philosophy of HighTech all along. We typically don't do anything very fast. We put a lot of thought and make sure, and is with a long-term goal in mind. What are these business decisions now? How are they going to affect us 5, 10, and 15 years from now? And that's why we're here. That's why we still are successful. That's why we haven't had to have huge cutbacks like other companies in this industry. That's why we've gone out and sought out other markets and other industries for our product. So, because we've been able to transition and move and had the resources to do that. So that's why we are here. That's why we're the biggest servo company in the world right now.
Well, you both touched on it, but I think obviously customer service is a huge part of it. And as Mike said, you're available. You can reach someone on the phone. It does seem like, and not just in our hobby, but in our lives in general, it's harder and harder to get a person on the phone. Many companies don't even publish a phone number anymore. So, definitely appreciate that you're available in that way, because it's interesting. I get emails all the time from AMA members who ask me questions about products in the industry, about someone's aircraft or about the best servo to use or motors to use or whatnot. And oftentimes I can answer those questions, but not always. And, and then we did a common questions. I created a common questions section in the magazine, and we've had a lot of our advertisers take part of that, including HighTech, where you share with us some of the most common questions that you receive, because obviously if you're getting those more often, then we're going to get those questions as well from our readers. So, I greatly appreciate that you're available to people that need help, or, maybe someone's going from cars to airplanes or airplanes to cars. And there's a lot to know. And you guys are the experts, and you're there to share that information. And I'm assuming you get a high volume of calls a lot of times for customer service and help with things.
Yeah, absolutely. There's, I don't know, probably at least 100 phone calls a day and probably 500 or 600 emails a day. So, that's one thing Mike and I were talking about this last night, because, you've got a big shop with a lot of employees. Some employees are on vacation during the summer and things like that. Some are out sick, hopefully not with COVID, but it's part of the new normal today. And we're like, well, who's answering the phones? Because that's one of the big deals. We don't want somebody to call in, and if 2 or 3 other people are already on the phone, we don't want that phone call to just roll off into the ether and not get answered. So we're like, well, let's put so and so on the phone too, so in case we got some backup. So that is incredibly important to us, to be able to, for the end user, no matter what they're doing with the product, to be able to call us or email us and get an answer in a timely manner, and get quality service, and and make sure their questions and concerns or requests are followed up on. So that's very, very important to us, and unfortunately, it is kind of overlooked nowadays with a lot of industries.
And know that our service department, Tony Ohm, he's actually been with the company the longest. He's been 9 years. Maybe even 30. I don't know exactly. He's been here the longest. Don Johnson, who's our other technician, he came in a year after me, so he's been here 25 years. So we have a lot of the people that are here know what we're talking about. We've experienced the products ins and outs. One of the questions you were saying, kind of things you get, what I get, ask asking questions is, and I've done seminars and stuff like that at Toledo and other shows where, how do I know what servo to use? And, I always tell people that, it's something where you want to match the level of servo to the level of model, and you don't want to skimp. You don't want to, you spend all this time you talk about, building, right? If you're building something, then there's a different level of commitment. There's a different level of I put my time, my effort. It's easy to put the money in and just have somebody, open up a box. It's almost ready to go, and then you're just out the money. But if something fails, but to have your blood, sweat, and tears in something, you want to use a good quality, product for the level that you're at, and that's why HighTech offers so many different levels of component. You take on the little small servos, for example, the HS55. HS55 is probably one of, as far as numbers go, most popular servo in history, and it's got its applications, but that 55 might not be the best choice, even though it may work. Might not be the best choice when you're talking about a model that you spend a lot of time and effort. You might want to go to, the 65 or the 70, and we continue to develop products as the industry changes. So over the past several years, 3D flying, these models like Extreme Flight, AJ aircraft, are coming out with the level of flying skill. The bars raised so high, the strain and stress that's been put on these airframes. They want to use lightweight servos in them, but there's only so much that they can do. So we've continued to develop product, on the smaller side of things, where we have, instead of an HS55, with 15-inch ounces of torque, we have a similar size servo that has 60-inch ounces of torque. So you always want to match up the right tool for the job, I say, and there's no such thing as overkill. There is never any such thing as too much torque. So if it has more torque, it means the servo is not going to work as hard. It's going to potentially live longer, not going to get as hot, and typically the higher end servos are going to use higher end components. So you want to match that up to what your project is.
And like Mike mentioned, we're approaching 200 different servos that HighTech offers. So odds are we have something that will be the perfect fit, or even better than the perfect fit for the application that it's going in, from tiny little foamies on up to something that could be delivering your packages, things like that. That's what HighTech does. So we have it all, and we're working harder than everybody else to make sure our product is out there and the best that it is.
So when it comes to, obviously I'm sure it varies, but is one of the questions that you receive most often, is it asking you your recommendations? Like, I have this airplane, or maybe, I got my father's airplane and it hasn't flown in 20 years and I'm retrofitting it. Are those a lot of the questions you receive is advice on specifically what servos to use in a project?
We do. Yeah. People ask about, what we would recommend, or they'll tell me what they're using. And, one of the things is I'll say, I'm not saying that it won't work. I'm just saying that it's not ideal. So when somebody says, I'm going to put, a low cost servo in this airplane, will it work? Yeah, sure. It'll work. Is it the chance of success, or potentially a failure comes when you use a better component, and again, when I say component, I mean the servos use components. The servos use different motors. You have a standard cord motor, you have a coreless motor, and brushless motors. And so that's the latest servos are going brushless, although most of these are all the higher end products. But using digital servos. When do I know when to use digital servos? Oh, do digital servos draw more current? Well, in most cases, they don't draw that much more current, and the digital servos are always going to be more precise. They're going to center better. They're going to give you more holding torque. They're going to perform better. depends too on your skill level. How do I know when the 645 isn't going to be as good as I need, and I need something like a D955? So those are a lot of questions that we get, and like I said, I'll let people know that doesn't necessarily mean that that product won't work, but it's again kind of the right tool for the job. Sometimes you need to spend a little bit extra to get that extra level of security, whether it's using better component performance, whether your skill level can match it or not. But yeah, a lot of questions like that we get.
So I've never asked either one of you this before, but I just personally had this thought as we talk about the different models of servo. Where do the models come from? Like if you say an HS55 servo, where did like the 55 come from? Is there a special
hierarchy for the numbers?
What's that?
They're like a hierarchy for the numbers, like what do the numbers mean?
Yeah.
Well, it does kind of go up there. It's essentially 055 is the smaller side of things. We have a 45, 65, a 70. You're going to be having a 66 and a 71. So these are all kind of to give you an idea about where they fit in the size wise. Then you've got the 125, 145, 141. Those are all the smaller wing servos. The 2 series is a mini servo. 3 and 4 series are going to be the standard size servos. And then as we continue up from there, 6 series is a more torque. Then we get into the 700, 800 series. Those are giant scale. And then the 900 series, which we don't really have any. I think we just still do have the 985. Was a coreless motor. Then we, the numbers in front of, the HS just is HighTech servo. And then there's the brushless, which would have a B in it. So there is a hierarchy, and it gets a little difficult as there's 200 servos to try to name. So we're maybe the next one coming out. We're not quite sure that it was the proper naming, but it's just you got to come up with a number, and you can't use numbers if anybody else has them, type of thing. So. But yeah, there is sort of a hierarchy to it, and it's basically that first number kind of telling you how big it is.
Yeah, and there is a discussion when somebody proposes a new servo where we think we'd call it this, and we're like, we don't like that. Let's call it this instead. So
speed version versus torque version.
Right. We try to stick with a disciplined naming structure, but it doesn't always work out 100% of the time. So, and at the end of the day, you accept it, whatever the name is, and it all comes down to the quality of the servo versus the name. So the name becomes secondary. We just want to make sure it's a good servo. So.
Well, and to that point too, Shawn, you have all the data on your website. If I want to look at a certain servo, it's going to tell me the size of the case and the torque and the speed. And, sometimes you can't even find that on when you're looking at certain servos, not HighTech. But so that's obviously greatly helpful as well. But, I've never even, it's funny just having this conversation. I never even thought about asking about that, about where the naming comes from, but it's just interesting. And I know that you all also have a lot to do with drones, and there's a drone division. Should we chat a little bit about that?
Sure. So we do manufacture a couple commercial drones. Those drones are mostly used for doing surveys and mapping, surveillance or reconnaissance, surveillance. Could be some search and rescue, but a lot of it goes out, and the drones have a sensor on board, and it could be doing a precision survey for a construction company where it flies over, and due to the sensor and the GPS that's on there, it knows within 1 to 3 centimeters where exactly that little point that it takes a picture on is. And for an engineer that's on a construction site, needs to know, hey, is this in the right spot? And he can go to the mapping survey that was done and say, yep, it's exactly within the right spot. And all these drones are made in the U.S. So, for example, here in Southern California, There's a lot of utility poles, power and electric that's on military bases or federally owned bases, like for nuclear sites and things like that. So the survey companies or the utility companies that have to go inspect those assets all the time, they can't walk onto that federal property with a drone that is made in China. So they have to go out and source a drone that is made in the U.S., that all components that are derived and insighted and transferring data don't come from or come from a considered friendly country. And so that's one of the roles we play. We also make a lot of components for other manufacturers for drones. We make airspeed sensors that are made in the U.S. We make GNSS, which is a precision GPS device that gives you those precision surveys. We also make a ground control system, which is essentially a big transmitter that is designed specifically for drones. So we sell these components to other drone manufacturers, a lot of them in the U.S., some outside of the U.S., that they install into their commercial drones. And then we also make a fixed wing drone and a multi-rotor. So, it is a part of our business here in the U.S. The engineers are located here in the U.S. So we've got a whole drone department here, a production facility here. So it is very exciting, and it does give us an advantage of having engineers on site for questions for everything. And these engineers are also hobbyists, they're also modelers. So there is a added level of experience here in this office that we have access to. And a lot of these events, some of those engineers are with us. They're flying with us. They're great pilots. They're making they're making their own RC stuff and participating in the hobby too at a very high level. So this part of the business is part of what we like, and it does have its benefits for the hobby and everything else in the industry and making better products.
Well, when I visited HighTech and was provided a tour, I saw that as well. I mean, Shawn, you had your current project was on your desk, and I can see right now behind Mike, he's got a charger or two, and he's got a RC car. And so as I walked around and met the people in your office, everybody had something RC related on their desk. So it's like you said. I mean, it's definitely there's a benefit there. That they're all involved, and they understand when you come to them with needs or concerns. They're hobbyists too. So yeah, I can greatly appreciate that. So with so many people in your office being involved in the hobby, do you all ever get together and fly together, or do you have like a HighTech day at the local club, or do you have the opportunity to fly lunch together?
We try. There for the drone part of it, there is a lot of test flying that goes on. Usually every vehicle that we sell is test flown before it leaves here. So a lot of times there's someone out flying every day. Sometimes we do meet on the weekend. Sometimes we do meet at the local club. Sometimes we do maybe sneak out on a Friday. And sometimes it is actually scheduled where it's Friday fly day. So we go out we've got a couple different options to go fly something. So yes, that does happen. There's a lot of components that have to be tested, and the only way to test those is in a vehicle and various different vehicles. So there were times where we were testing things where before work, we would fly through all our batteries. We'd basically arrive at sunrise and fly until we burned up all the batteries, and then charge the batteries during the day, and then leave work and go back and fly until dark, after charging up all the batteries. And it's because that product needed to be tested, but you still got to get all your work done during the day too. But it's when your job is also something you're passionate about, it's easier to spend the time and go out and fly because it is your job. But when we went to the Soaring event, quite a few employees there, even some former employees went with us to the flying event because hey, this is going to be really cool. Let's go out and do this. So it does get harder as you get busier, but we do try to get out and fly when we can. So it is something we still enjoy and something we still do. We have projects now. Instead of projects on my desk, I've got an engineering department and a production department that I can leave those projects in, and it doesn't clutter up my desk. And some of the production people, engineers, like, when are you going to get your stuff out of here? But so we've got 3D printers going a lot of the time. It's the same things you'd find in a manufacturing facility to build product, and some of it's used for products, some of it is used for hobby stuff too. But again, we still get out and enjoy the fun parts of the industry, and that includes flying. Mike always enjoys going to, he loves going to Joe Nall. I wish I could travel to some of these events, like I used to a lot of, but it's not always the case. But we still try to get out as best we can, and we still all use the product and use the product a lot.
Do you on either your Facebook page? I'm sure you do it on your Facebook page, and maybe on your main page. You do share which events you go to, right? So if anybody wants to find out where HighTech's going to be at, they can find that definitely on your Facebook page. But is there also a listing on your website?
We'll post that we're events that we're going to be going to on the Facebook page, and so if you haven't been to our Facebook page, definitely like that, and you'll see notifications on that. So as far as we do try to put up information, again, the last couple of years we haven't done anything, which is a bummer, but we will be getting back out there, and we'll post information that will be at at the NEAT fair and stuff like that. But that's we're trying to get more active on the social media side of things. We do have people helping us out there. It's it's tough to really, you don't want to overload people with information. You don't want to, not give them enough. So we do try to let, everybody know when we're going to be somewhere. And, ideally, there's not a ton going on this year. Hopefully next year we'll have, some more things that we're doing. Maybe expand on our team pages to where we know that those people can put out information that they'll be at events, and to look out for them. Jay, one of the things I wanted to also mention when Shawn was talking about some of the industrial side of things, and if you guys could maybe just bring up the main HighTech website there's a link to the industrial page, the HighTech Commercial Solutions. And what we've done on the HighTech Commercial Solutions page is that we put a lot more resources that typically the hobbyists don't have access to. And this would include like data sheets, CAD files. So people that are looking for a little bit more information, so where you see where it says the HighTech Commercial Solutions there. So if you click on that, you go to the to that page there, you'll see like under support that there'll be actuator resources. If you go to actuator resources, you'll see there's CAD files, there's data files, there's documentation, and so if they want to download a data file for a servo to see really what everything is all about. It's got a whole list of pretty much every one of our servos. There'll be a CAD file that they could download and utilize in that aspect. So while we don't have this on the RC side, I just wanted people to know that those resources available on our commercial solutions page.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
We're almost out of time, but is there anything else that either one of you would like to share or talk about before we wrap up?
John?
It's just been nice to get to talk to you, Jay. Nice to get to talk to the audience. Things are beginning to, start happening again in the world where we do attend events and trade shows, and we're very happy to be back doing those type of things. We love going out and seeing the consumers using the product, and we love to talk to them. We're having as much fun as they are, so it's not all work, but we just want the hobbyists to know, hey, HighTech is still out there, and in this different type of world where we may not have the flashiest website or have the biggest presence on social media, don't have all the TikTok videos going, we'd like to, but we're still out here. We're still making great product. We're not going anywhere. In fact, we're becoming more dominant. But we're going to be seen out at these events again with a larger presence, with a lot of people, with a lot of team members out there having fun again, and being able to just enjoy being outdoors, flying planes or racing cars, or helping out. We do a lot of educational programs too, helping out with. It could be some of the build and fly teams and the robotics. So, this is very important to us. Also expanding out into more humanitarian type, endeavors, helping out with robotics, helping out with things that give back to the community, prosthetics, other medical devices where, a servo makes something easier to use, better to use, more accurate, and more available to a larger part of the world. So being more environmentally sensitive in production and manufacturing and waste. So these are all goals that we have as a corporation. So just we want to get out and talk about that and let people know, hey, we're still here. We're having fun. We're also doing some great things, and we got some great people that are a part of it. So
I'd
I would
also
like to pass
just
it on.
thank the the loyalty of the AMA members over the years. I mean I like I said, I talk to people all the time. And they said I only use HighTech. And when you have a product line that offers every possible option that they would need, and we are the OG guys. We have been around. It used to be we were the low cost leaders, and now with a lot of influence from the Chinese products that are out there just kind of flooding the market, $3 servos, right? It's there's something to be said about using a product that is gonna last, has a support. It's not just a throwaway item. That years from now, if you have a high-tech servo you bought today, years from now you have a problem with it, you can send it in, even if it's out of warranty. If it's out of warranty, we may still even fix it. I can tell you so many stories of people who are like, look, I knew I messed it up, I sent it in, and you guys just fixed it anyway. Because that's showing that you're loyal to a brand, and we want to show you that we appreciate that. And in times when we say, hey, it's going to cost you this much to fix it, it's reasonable. And if it's not economical to repair, then we'll offer you a discount on a new item, something just so that it makes it to where if you send it in, it wasn't just you wasted your money to send it in. So we always take that approach. I want to thank everybody out there for their loyalty, for being a high-tech customer for so many years. I've talked to so many people over my 26 years here with the company. I love seeing them out at the events. Can't wait to see more people in the future.
Well, it's always a pleasure to see you both at events and chat with you, and I appreciate you taking some of your time today to talk about some of the new products and talk about your rich company history and the customer service and all that. So thank you both for being on the show. And let's remind everyone that the next show will be on August 19th. Friday, August 19th will be our next show, and I will look forward to seeing everybody then. Thank you so much for watching.